It's tempting to look at the war in Ukraine in simple, surface-level terms. Russia, after all, has the bigger army, the larger economy, and the deeper pool of manpower. It's been pushing forward, especially in eastern regions like Donetsk, and it continues to claim patches of Ukrainian territory. From that angle, it's easy to assume that Moscow and Vladimir Putin personally is winning. But the closer you look, the less convincing that picture becomes. Because war isn't just about how many soldiers you can mobilize or how many tanks you can churn out of your factories. It's about strategy, efficiency, momentum, morale, and the ability to adapt to shifting circumstances. On those fronts, Ukraine has increasingly shown itself to be not just resilient, but surprisingly innovative. While Russia has looked clumsy, inflexible, and at times, outright desperate, yes, Russia has made incremental advances. Over the summer of 2025, estimates suggest it managed to take a few hundred square miles in total. But in military terms, that's not a decisive amount. Certainly not the kind of sweeping conquest that would change the course of the war. Many of those gains have been fleeting, quickly reversed by Ukrainian counterattacks. And in the places that matter most, Russia keeps running into a brick wall. Take Pokrovsk, for example. This city in the Donetsk region is a key prize. It's a transport and logistics hub, with connections that allow Ukraine to funnel troops, vehicles, and supplies deeper into the front. That's why Russia has been gunning for it relentlessly. For almost a year, the Kremlin has thrown everything it can at this city. Tanks, drones, assault units, even undercover soldiers disguised as civilians. Yet every attempt has failed. At one point, Russian forces tried to outflank the city by moving north and capturing smaller towns and villages in the direction of Dobropilya. They even managed to breach Ukrainian defenses briefly. But when Kiev reinforced the area with some of its toughest formations, including battalions from the 93rd, Mechanized Brigade and the Azov Corps, the Russians were driven back. By the end of August, Ukraine had stabilized the lines and reclaimed much of the ground. That's been the pattern again and again. For months, headlines have warned that Pokrovsk was on the brink of falling. But it hasn't. Ukraine still controls it. And the longer Russia fails, the more obvious its shortcomings become. Capturing a single frontline city, even a strategically important one, should not be beyond the ability of a country with Russia's resources. But it is. And that speaks volumes about where this war actually stands. In fact, Ukraine hasn't just held the line around Pokrovsk. It's been clawing land back. Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky recently revealed that in August alone, Ukraine regained far more territory in the Pokrovsk sector than Russia was able to take. His figures tell the story. In the Dobropilya direction, Russia captured about 5 square miles, but lost nearly 10. Around Pokrovsk itself, Russian gains amounted to less than 2 square miles, while Ukraine retook over 10. In other words, Ukraine won back 5 times more land in that area than Russia managed to seize, and despite Russia concentrating huge resources and launching around 350 assaults there in just the first week of September. That's a staggering statistic. It shows that Ukraine is no longer just absorbing attacks. It's pushing back and doing so effectively. In the early phases of the war, counterattacks like these would have been almost unthinkable. Ukraine simply didn't have the manpower or resources. Now it does, and it's turning those resources into results. This shift reflects a broader change in momentum. At the start, Russia dominated. Its tanks and armored columns surged over the border, overwhelming thin Ukrainian defenses and grabbing territory quickly. Ukraine fought valiantly but was outnumbered and under-equipped. Over time, though, the dynamic flipped. Russian progress slowed, then stalled, while Ukraine grew stronger with Western support. With better weapons, better training, and a clearer strategy, Ukraine launched counteroffensives that stunned the world. Russia, meanwhile, began to suffer losses on a scale rarely seen in modern warfare. Estimates put its casualties at more than 1 million since the full-scale invasion began, with about 300,000 killed or injured this year alone. Its equipment losses are equally jaw-dropping. More than 4,000 tanks, over 8,000 armored vehicles, hundreds of missile systems, radars, trucks, and artillery pieces, the list goes on. Faced with these losses, Russian commanders have been forced to rethink their tactics. They've moved away from large armored pushes, instead sending small squads on foot or in civilian vehicles. Trucks, jeeps, even motorcycles. These units are lightly armed, poorly protected, and frighteningly vulnerable to Ukraine's artillery and drones. Many soldiers know they're on suicide missions. They go anyway because they're ordered to, and because refusing could mean imprisonment, torture, or worse. This has destroyed morale. Tens of thousands of Russian soldiers have deserted, despite the brutal punishments for doing so. Groups like Get Lost, which helps Russians avoid conscription, report that many soldiers see desertion as their only chance of survival. Commanders themselves reportedly treat their troops as expendable, telling them outright they'll be dead within a week. For these officers, losing a tank or vehicle is worse than losing 20 men. It's not hard to see why morale is collapsing. Soldiers are the lifeblood of any army, even in an age of drones and AI weapons. Without motivated, willing fighters, no military can function. Russia has treated its soldiers like disposable assets, and it's paying the price. Yes, it can still recruit tens of thousands each month, often by offering big payouts to families, but that pool isn't endless. Its population is large but not infinite, and eventually the number of willing recruits will dwindle. The same logic applies to Russia's broader resources. Tanks, drones, missiles. None of them are limitless. Moscow can manufacture a few hundred advanced tanks a year, but that doesn't make up for thousands lost. It can churn out drones and shells, but production is expensive and time-consuming. Meanwhile, Western sanctions and mismanagement are hollowing out the Russian economy. Prices are rising, banks are under strain, the national wealth fund is shrinking, and a recession looms. This economic decay has left Putin increasingly desperate. He's been purging generals, ministers, and officials, blaming them for failures, jailing some and sidelining others. It's a campaign dressed up as anti-corruption, but really about consolidating control. He's leaning more heavily on the FSB, one of the few institutions he still trusts. And even as he tries to project strength, he's been forced to announce cuts in military spending from 2026, a move that underlines his limited options. Even his much-hyped summer offensive, intended to secure breakthroughs before his meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump in August, delivered little of note. The offensive fizzled. The gains were negligible. For all his talk of strength, Putin looks stuck, both militarily and politically. Ukraine, in contrast, has found ways to rise. Over the past year, Kyiv has shifted from a purely defensive posture to taking the fight directly to Russia. Its daring incursion into the Kursk region last year and its devastating Operation Spiderweb strikes on Russian airfields in June are examples of this new approach. These were not symbolic attacks. They were strategic blows designed to sap Russia's ability to wage war. And the key word here is strategy. Russia has relied on brute force, throw men and machines into the grinder, and hope Ukraine eventually cracks. Ukraine, by contrast, has been calculating. It identifies critical targets and hits them surgically. When Russia leaned on drones, Ukraine developed its own and used them in smarter ways. While Russia bombards civilian neighborhoods, Ukraine has targeted infrastructure, refineries, radar sites, command posts, and supply chains. The results speak for themselves. Fires and explosions deep inside Russia, supply shortages at the front, and mounting costs for Moscow's war machine. New weapons are expanding Ukraine's reach even further. The long Neptune missile can now strike up to 620 miles away. The homegrown Sapson ballistic missile travels 4 times the speed of sound and reaches more than 300 miles. The Flamingo missile, still fresh on the scene, reportedly has a staggering range of 1,800 miles. Ukraine isn't just unveiling these systems, it's scaling up production. Already, over half of Ukraine's weapons are domestically produced. A figure that's only growing. This matters. The less Ukraine relies on foreign aid, the stronger its position becomes. Western support is still crucial, but Ukraine is increasingly capable of sustaining its own fight. And beyond weapons, Ukraine is innovating across the board. AI-powered defenses, anti-drone walls of static, and reinforced armor packages for vehicles. Each of these developments erodes Russia's edge and tilts the battlefield further in Ukraine's favor. As one Western analyst put it, Ukraine is winning because it's degrading Russian capabilities while strengthening its own. That's the essence of modern warfare. Adapt faster, innovate smarter, and force your opponent into a downward spiral. Of course, Ukraine's challenges are real. Manpower shortages are acute. Nightly missile and drone barrages still kill civilians and destroy infrastructure. Cities have been scarred, families torn apart, history and culture reduced to rubble. But through it all, Ukraine has endured. Its people have shown resilience that has amazed the world. Its leaders have guided the country through crisis with resolve. And its army has transformed into a force capable not just of defending, but of striking back. Meanwhile, Russia bleeds men, loses equipment, and suffers humiliation after humiliation. Its government eats itself alive. Its economy weakens. Its strategy amounts to little more than stubborn repetition. And Putin, once feared as a master strategist, looks increasingly like a man trapped by his own mistakes, unable to secure victory and unsure how to end the war. Ukraine, against all odds, keeps standing tall. It digs in, resists, innovates, and counterattacks. It's not marching toward easy victory, but the tide has turned. Day by day, Putin's chances shrink. For those who still think Russia is winning, the evidence tells a different story. Ukraine is not just surviving. It's adapting, it's fighting smart, and it's slowly but surely tipping the balance in its favor. And that's why this war feels less like Russia advancing, and more like Russia sinking, stuck in the mud with no clear way out.